Greetings, everyone. I am Pete Pardo from Sea of Tranquility. It's August 1st, 2025. Welcome to day one, pick one of my favorite 31 frontmen or women, lead singers who also played an instrument full time. So we're picking out those musicians that stood at the front at the microphone, main singer, or one of the main singers, and had a guitar, bass, sat at the keyboards, drums, violin, flute, oboe, sax, whatever it might be. But they played an instrument pretty much all the time and were the lead singer, frontman of the band. There's a lot of good ones, a lot more than I anticipated. I kept like going and picking out more and picking out more and picking out more. I'm like, whew, alrighty then. So again, kind of the criteria we're doing here for this month. So we're not picking someone who was the full-time singer, but mostly just standing up there singing and maybe occasionally sat at the piano or occasionally pulled out an acoustic guitar or something like that. We're not really looking for those. Those folks they're full-time singers. They also happen to dabble a little bit. I'm talking about those musicians that are up there. They're constantly playing guitar or on the bass or at the keyboard or the drums or whatever it might be. That's kind of their thing, right? So that's who we're kind of picking out here. And again, they did it live and in the studio because there's some, there are a couple I think that are on my list where in the studio they did both all the time, and then live they would go back and forth, back and forth. Um, that does happen in a couple of cases. There's like one that sticks out for me right there, but yeah, for the most part, they're doing both, right? They are one part, an important part of the instrumental sound of the band, and they are the voice of the band, right? So again, like people like Freddie Mercury, not going to pick Freddie Mercury. John Anderson, not going to pick John Anderson. There's others that occasionally will pick up an instrument, right? Someone mentioned too. I was in a conversation with someone in the chat in the comments of yesterday's video. So, well, how about someone like Keith Richards, right? He does sing some, yeah, but Mick is the guy, right? Mick is the main guy. And Mick is another one I wouldn't pick here either because Mick occasionally does pick up a guitar. But Keith, Keith sings maybe one song on an album, maybe during a Stones live set, he may sing a song, maybe two. He's not the main front man guy, right? So I'm not picking folks like that. If that's what you want to do, go right ahead. But that's my criteria. That's my criteria. Also here, I was chatting with Melanie yesterday, and she's like, "Well, do we have to get favorite albums and stuff together?" And I was like, "Well, you can if you want. I'm not sure if I'm going to, whatever." But then I decided, yeah, it'll add more meat to the conversation. So I'm going to pick out my three favorite albums featuring their vocals and playing, or just my three favorite albums that they've appeared on, right? So, and I'm not going to go too deep into songs and stuff like that. So, my pick for today, this is a guy who probably just missed out on both my singers. I don't think he made my singers list, my vocalist list, and my bass player list. And I love him, but he just like never quite made it on either one, I don't believe. Pretty sure he missed out on both. He may have made the vocalist one, but I don't remember, to be honest with you. But I knew for sure he was going to be featured very prominently on this month's list because he was a terrific bass player. Maybe not that crazy virtuoso like other guys that were featured on the Bass Player Month. Was a great singer, but maybe not like the prototypical, guys that we think of as the legendary vocalists, right? But I think when you put the two together, he's an amazing, amazing singer, bass player, and songwriter. Very, very important. Let me bring to the stage here the late, the great, the legend himself, Mr. Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy, of course, him there on the Fender Precision bass, which was mainly his weapon of choice, as I believe that is a Fender Precision there. But he did play some other stuff. He played a Rickenbacker early on, and I think he played various Ampeg and Ibanez basses over the years too. But the Fender Precision was his main bass of choice. In fact, he had, if you remember, you've probably seen pictures of it. He had that transparent Ampeg bass, kind of like early on. you would see pictures of him every now and then, right? Which I was reading up on that, and apparently Glenn Hughes now owns that, or did own it at some point in time. So amazing how that happens a lot, right? Remember the old Gibson SG that Eric Clapton played back in his Cream days, the psychedelic one. He eventually that wound up in the hands of Todd Rundgren. So it's amazing how sometimes some of these, like Peter Green's guitar, wound up going to Gary Moore and then to Kirk Hammett, right? It's just weird how like that happens, right? But it's kind of cool that legendary instruments wind up in the hands of legendary musicians and they kind of get passed along and whatnot. So I think that's kind of cool. But anyway, back to Phil. So a really interesting bass player because, like during the early days of like Skid Row and the early Thin Lizzy days, I mean, he basically just took on the bass just for those gigs. Not like he was a bass player for a long time before then. So a lot of what he developed, the skills he developed, was kind of learned on the job, and he became a very, very good bass player. Not one of those guys who did all sorts of fills and solos and things like that, but a rock solid bass player who played very, very melodically with a pick. But, most importantly, what a singer too, what a storyteller. So he's up there laying down the groove in all these classic Thin Lizzy songs and albums and delivering those emotional, very unique vocals that, I mean, nobody sounds like Phil. And he didn't sound like anybody else, but more, telling those stories and bonding with the audience. I mean, he was a dynamic frontman. He had a look, right? Like the way he dressed and, you know, just an awesome, awesome front man for a great, great band. And just holding it down, delivering those stories. That's what it's all about. So my three favorite albums featuring Phil's vocals and bass playing. My three favorite Thin Lizzy albums, right? I'm going to go with Fightin'. Nope, let me turn off the Prezi here so you can see these in the way they're supposed to be looking here. I keep forgetting I had the Prezi on. I didn't want to get rid of the Phil image there, but there we go. Fightin' from Thin Lizzy. Of course, this is the second album featuring the new configuration of Scott Gorham, Brian Robertson, Brian Downey, and Phil. Right? You had the album Nightlife, which came before. This, to me, is the album where really the classic Thin Lizzy sound finally came to fruition. I think Phil was still all the way back to the beginning. If you look at those first couple albums with the Power Trio, right, with Eric Bell, um, I'm not an enormous fan of those albums, but there is some really good stuff on them. I think the band was just trying to find their way, this kind of bluesy stuff, a little psychedelic stuff, certainly folk stuff, and then the heavy rock stuff. And I think Phil really was starting to develop as a kind of storyteller and a songwriting even very, very early on. But really, the Phil Lynott persona really, really came to fruition on this album, along with the rest of the band. I think they all really figured it out here. Their version of Rosalie is terrific. For those who love to live, Suicide, Wild One, right? Suicide is so good, right? Fighting My Way Back, fighting. Dun, 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 dun. Simon Bray every time. Every time I listen to Fighting My Way Back now, I think of the Bray Dog, right? Because we did that Thin Lizzy episode a while back, and fighting. I know Simon's watching, so he knows what I'm talking about. King's Revenge on here. Spirit Slips Away is so cool. Silver Dollar Freedom Song, Ballad of a Hard Man. Right? It's great stuff on here. There have been times over the years where I have picked this as my favorite Thin Lizzy album. Right? More often than not, though, I go to Jailbreak. Yeah, Jailbreak is classic. Right? To me, Phil as the ultimate frontman laying down the groove, even though I like so many songs way more than The Boys Are Back in Town, that's like the signature Thin Lizzy track. There's so much swagger and confidence in that song, and he's bursting with it, right? So good. But man, you got title track on here, Angel from the Coast. Romeo and the Lonely Girl is cool. I love when he does that style of singing as well. Warriors is killer. Fighter Fall, Cowboy Song, and of course the amazing Emerald, that rumbling bass, alongside those roaring guitars, just absolute killer. And then my final pick is going to be Johnny the Fox. Great album. To me, one of their strongest albums, maybe the underrated one that like people always talk about how much they love it, but it never really comes up in discussions because usually one of these other albums, there's certain albums in the Thin Lizzy catalog that people always want to talk about. Jailbreak is one of them. Thunder and Lightning always comes up in conversations because the last one, it was such a great album to go out on, right? And John Sykes is on it. It's their metal album, right? People talk about the live album all the time. People talk about Fighting. But like everybody respects this album, but it never comes up in conversation. But man, it's great stuff on here. Borderline's on here. Don't Believe a Word is on here. Just crazy Fool's Gold. Title track, Johnny the Fox meets Jimmy the Wheat. So funky, so good. The guitar licks are great. Massacre's on here. The simple and kind of ridiculous, but still great Boogie Woogie Dance. It's like a silly song, but man, the groove and the riffs are so cool in that song. I mean, there's other great stuff on here. Johnny is great. So yeah, those are my three favorite albums featuring the dual playing and singing of Phil Lynott, right? And one of the greats. The cool thing about this month is that there are going to be some repeat folks. If we look back on the favorite drummers, favorite vocalists, favorite bass players, favorite guitar players, favorite keyboard players, right? Um, Obviously, some of those are going to cross over into this episode, into this month's program. But I think there's others that maybe didn't make the cut in any of those, and now they will, right? So, while we will see some folks that obviously their skills on the vocals or guitars or whatever were amazing or bass play, but they also now we get to kind of recognize them for not only their vocal skills but their instrumental skills as well. So that's going to be interesting to see like how this all works out, both from my picks. I've pretty much picked my list, but I have a big honorable mentions list, and I keep looking and finding more. So there may be some substitutions along the way, but it'd be interesting to see what you guys come up with. So yeah, Phil Lynott is my pick for today, or Lynott, as the folks from Ireland say it's supposed to be spoken, pronounced, but. Sorry, I've been saying Phil Lynott for my entire life, and I've seen various interviews, and they've even seen an interview with his mother, and she pronounced it that way. So it's like, whatever. But Phil, we'll call him Phil, right? Phil from Thin Lizzy. So the late, the great Phil Lynott is my pick for today for his vocal and bass playing skills. So let us know what you think of Phil down in the comments below, as well as your pick for today, and we'll see you tomorrow for day number two and pick number two. Like I said, I'm not ranking these; they're in no order. But hopefully, you know some of your favorites will be mentioned this month. And if not, it's okay. We don't all have to have the same favorites. Just remember that, folks. So many, we're like a whole bunch of people who are like up in arms over my Chick Corea pick yesterday as my favorite keyboard player of all time. It's like, there's no way that Chick Corea is better than John Lord or Keith Emerson. And, I can't believe you would pick a Scientology guy as your favorite. I'm like, I don't care about Scientology. I don't, yeah, you guys got to understand. I know a lot of you get hung up in these musicians and what they believe in and what they do in their personal lives, what type of what political leanings they have or what religions they follow or their opinions on this, that, or the other thing. I don't care. I don't care, right? I talk about them. I listen to them for the music. I turn off all that other stuff, you know? Is Ted Nugent an asshole? Yeah, he is. But you know what? I can separate that from his guitar playing skills and his music. It's just the way it is. I don't pretend to know jack shit about Scientology. There are some people that just, oh God, Scientology stuff is nonsense. Well, you know what? It may be. I personally don't care. I choose to ignore it. Chick Corea to me is the greatest keyboard player of all time. He's my favorite. This is what it is. I'm not saying he's better than John Lord or Keith Emerson. There is no better, right? His music speaks to me just a tiny fraction of a bit more over someone like John Lord, who I love. I love. He was my favorite keyboard player for decades. As I've gotten older, though, I've really appreciated the music of Chick Corea all the more. And you know what? He just beats out John, but by a smidge. So whatever. Pick who you like. I'm going to pick who I like. Some people are like, I'm so disappointed you didn't have John Lord as number one. Why would you be disappointed? You pick him as your number one. He was my number two. Does that not count for something? It's like, people, come on. It's like it's just to be up in arms over the order that I pick things. It's just ridiculous. There are more important things to worry about in the world. Just, accept what I pick, list your picks. That's what it's all about, right? To get upset over the order and where I rank people. It's like it doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. Because if you're going to make that big of a deal about it, I won't even bother ranking them anymore because it's just like it drains me to read some of these comments sometimes. So please, just have fun with this. That's what this is supposed to be about, fun, right? Talking about these musicians and albums and songs and music that we love. That's what this channel is about. If you're going to get so hung up on all this other minutia, then you just sap the fun out of it, right? Sorry, it's been a rough week and I'm just not in the mood. Anyway, thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also, down below, I got the links to our Ko-Fi page, our channel donations, our merch page, our Cameo page, and the Sea of Tranquility membership options all down below. Thanks, everybody. Greatly appreciated. We'll see you soon here with more stuff. We will not have the professor's picks today. Ken, this is a very, very light week for new releases, so he really didn't have enough to do a show, so there will be no Professor's Picks today. Tune in next week for the next one. Martin Popoff and I will be back at the Funhouse, though, in just a little bit. We're going to be taking a look at Ozzy Osbourne through the decades, right? So this is all kind of celebrating the life of Ozzy, and we've got a whole bunch of pictures and photographs of Ozzy from starting from the early '70s all the way up until um, from the beginning show, right? And we're going to just kind of take a look at Ozzy, the way he looked, the way he changed over the years, and just have like a general discussion looking at Ozzy throughout the decades. So that's kind of what we're doing on the Friday morning at the Funhouse. Tomorrow we've got the review crew, and Sunday I will be ranking the albums of Jerry Cantrell's solo albums. Of course, Jerry Cantrell, singer, songwriter, and guitar player from Alice in Chains. So that's coming up on Sunday. So till then, I am Pete Pardo. Don't forget also Hudson Valley Squares coming at you on Monday. It will be a special Ozzy and Black Sabbath show. So we're going to be talking about some of our favorite things from Ozzy, favorite songs, favorite albums, favorite shows we've seen, all that kind of just reminiscing about Ozzy and Black Sabbath. That'll be on the Hudson Valley Squares on Monday. So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you then. I'm Pete Barlow. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye bye.